Welcome to the Penny Stamps Distinguished Speaker Series. My name is Christina Hamilton, the series director. Today we come to you direct from Wasserman Projects in Detroit's Eastern Market, where the gallery is hosting the exhibition Ocean Body. For those of you here in the Detroit area, we hope that you will come to the gallery and experience this show firsthand. Ocean Body is a collaboration by 3 artists who join us here today. Helga Davis is a vocalist and performance artist with feet planted on the most prestigious international stages and firm roots in her local community. Davis was principal actor in the 25th anniversary production of Robert Wilson and Philip Glass's Einstein on the Beach. She is the host of the podcast Helga on WQXR, also an Alpert Award finalist, winner of the Greenfield Prize in Composition, and is currently visiting curator for the performing arts at the Gardner Museum in Boston. Shara Nova is a composer, vocalist, and the founder of the chamber pop band My Brightest Diamond. She has composed works for artists as varied as Y Music, Brooklyn Youth Chorus, Nadia Sirota, and Room Full of Teeth. Her orchestrations have been performed by symphonies the world over, and her Baroque chamber opera, You, Us, We All, was hailed by the New York Times as a vibrant mix that defies categorization. Mark DeChiazza is a director whose practice encompasses filmmaking, choreography, scenic and media design, and installation. His work has been presented nationally and internationally at venues including Lincoln Center, the Kennedy Center, and the Singapore International Festival of Arts. He and Sharon Nova co-created the massive outdoor music performance, Look Around for the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra. Now, before we join the artists, a few words from Wasserman Projects director and curator, Allison Wong.
Hi, and welcome to Wasserman Projects. I could not be more excited to share our newest exhibition with all of you as part of the Penny Stamp Speaker Series. I also hope you'll have a chance to visit and view the works in person, as the exhibition will be on view by appointment through December 18th. This exhibition so perfectly embodies our mission to support artists of all disciplines and to facilitate meaningful experiences with art and music. Exhibiting alongside our panelists this evening are artists John Dante Bianchi, Lily Cox Richard, Ed Frega, Jack Henry, Sandra Osip, and Ashley Eliza Williams. These artists' works speak to intimacy and isolation, mirroring some of the very themes in Ocean Body, an immersive 4-screen, multi-channel sound installation that you're going to hear all about with Helga, Mark, and Shara. But first, let's take a glimpse into Ocean Body.
You may want to reconsider, only praying to your Father for mankind. You may want to
Thank you so much for joining us for a conversation about ocean body. And I want to introduce to you my collaborators and friends. My name is Sharon Nova. I'm a composer and singer, have a band called My Brightest Diamond, and I've lived in Detroit for 12 years. And I have always wanted to sing with my friend Helga Davis. And any excuse I can find.
Any excuse we can find to sing together, it's really beautiful. And you know, just your saying this reminds me again of how we first met. I was working very newly at New York Public Radio, and one of the producers there invited me to this show. She's like, hey, you want to come to the show with me tonight? I'm going to hear this band at the Allen Room in Columbus Circle called My Brightest Diamond. I was like, yeah, okay, sure. And we walked into this place, and it's a beautiful, beautiful room. And then we heard this music. And I remember kind of clutching her after and saying, who was that? Who is this? I have to work with her. And just falling in love and thinking, well, wow, what could I do? How? And then to come full circle and for us to actually make a thing together that speaks to not just our musical love, but our love for one another, for our friendship. And then to have all of that so beautifully captured by you, Mark.
I think is something that's really interesting and unique about this project is that we didn't say, oh, you know, let's make a 4-screen multi-channel sound installation about, you know, with these songs and these speeches and these silent bits and movement, and, you know, that was not how it started. So the form followed. And in many ways, there was a huge amount of investigation and exploration during the 3 years of process that arrived at this ultimate form. And I think that, you know, there was this accumulation of material that happened too, because this piece was sort of a living thing, because Helga and Shara's friendship is a living thing. And as we would work, it would evolve and it would be in play and in action. So material would come out of those interactions, those residencies, those times we spent together. And so there's actually a vast amount of material that we made that's not in this piece. That there was, so in a way we were constantly creating and then also constantly sort of evaluating and reevaluating what a form for this work might look like.
And so while the genesis of this work is really our friendship, it also is about, I think, our first language, which is music. So I think that people don't know, for instance, that we both grew up in Pentecostal evangelical homes, that we both studied classical music, that we both compose, that we both do many, many things. And then I had the opportunity, after hearing you in the Allen Room that night, to work with you, finally, on 2 pieces.
Mm-hmm. I was composing a contemporary Baroque opera called You, Us, We All, and the director suggested Helga. And of course, the first time I heard her sing, I was like, yes, please, may I work with this person? And over the years of developing and creating and doing that opera in many, many different cities, we had a friendship and a musical way of being on stage together that we just so much enjoyed.
And like you said with Mark, a trust.
Mm-hmm.
Trust.
That was developed over now 10 years, 12 years.
Wow.
Yeah. One of my favorite memories about US We All was behind the curtain. And before the show would start, we would stand and face each other and raise our hands to the sky. And it was a way for us to center ourselves and to prepare and to feel empowered. And that became a ritual for us, and it found its way into Ocean Body. So there is a scene where we say we faced each other and held our arms up to the sky, stand, reach. And it's a beautiful practice that we have. And so this piece was interesting and different because the way that we had worked together, I had worked with Helga on her opera, Cassandra, and several actually other projects aside from US We All. But the way that this material was derived was from within the friendship. We had an idea that we didn't want to start talking about things that were out in the world, but that things that were between us.
And discovering things that are out in the world through the microcosm of the relationship was a huge part of our process.
It feels also, though, like a thing that I wanted to resist for such a long time, because I didn't want the world to reduce our friendship to a conversation about race or about gender. I wanted us to be free here in the way that we have always been free with one another. And that's been one of the challenges of this work, is to stay free while all the rest of the world looks for its conversation about race and about gender and about class and about all the other things that the world cares about. It has been such an important thing for us to continue to have ourselves and each other through this work, and as we were making this work.
We wanted to invite other people into these conversations that we were having. And one of the ways that we did that was through having conversations with choir. And so I reached out to the Detroit Women's Chorus here, and also to Castet High School, which has an incredible program of a harp and vocal ensemble, and said, what kinds of things are we dealing with in Detroit? How do we sit and have conversations together? And so before COVID, we were meeting together, and over time, with everything that happened with the public school, we simply weren't able to have those students sing on the project. But thankfully, the Detroit Women's Chorus was able to participate, and the teacher, Lydia Cleaver, the harpist from Cass Tech, and the amazing graduate of Cass Tech, Aya Simone, also played harp. And so many other people in Detroit contributed so significantly to this work. Certainly the sculpture created by Annica Cup is a central piece of this work. How is it that we are tied, and how are we moving in such a way that we affect the other person so dramatically? We cannot be independent of one another. And the sculpture is such an amazing metaphor for that.
It also became a real vehicle for discovery of relationship through being in it for the two of you.
And then this wonderful thing happened. In 2018, I won the Greenfield Prize in composition. And we were able to take our time at the Hermitage Foundation and discover the next movement of this work. We arrived at the Hermitage Foundation, which is in Minnesota, Florida. And there's a beautiful cottage, and it's right on the beach. And as soon as I saw the water, I understood that I and that we had business there. And so we began with Mark to explore exactly what that was going to mean. And oh boy, here we are again at this evolution. And through that discovery, we found Ocean Body.
We initially were exploring this, again, not yet determined form that this was going to end up in, as something that might happen in a theater and that would have no film, that had no environment beyond, that it was simply a staged portrait of the relationship. And that was the project, the general idea of the project that I came into with the two of you. And, you know, as we had these various residencies and work periods, the pandemic was unfolding, and that kept requiring renewed flexibility from us. So this premiere date is now this premiere date. Oh, this residency, you know, or you know, can it be something, you know, for this many people, or the room that you were thinking you might have set up this way can't be set up this way. So we kept changing, and because we had this looseness about what this thing was going to be anyhow, we could keep changing, and we sort of kept a flexible spirit about it. And so when we encountered the Gulf, at Sarasota at the residency at the Hermitage, it felt like that was a missing piece of the puzzle. Like, now we have a world. Now we have we have these two bodies in this vast environment that's, we just have the sky, the water, the earth, and Helga and Shara taken completely, out of the world of people and put into this context of just a world of their own, which is really what the piece is. It's your world. And so somehow this huge environment, this huge, unknown, friendly, unfriendly, foreboding, but also comforting, beautiful, but also scary kind of place became where this belonged.
When we began thinking about the water and our relationship to it, it forced me to think of an ancestral journey. And it provoked me into a very extensive ancestral journey. How did I get to this land? Where are my people from? When did we come over on this water to get here? How am I here? And what is my responsibility in terms of our family past, and where do I fit in this story of America, and how am I bringing that history into my friendship with Helga? So some of that is what you see in Ocean Body.
I think we see Shara and Helga together, but it's also important, we realize, to see them alone. And I think that they each, in the course of this piece, we meet them isolated and by themselves, as well as in the context of the other. And what they are alone casts light on what they are together. And I feel like there's also, we talked about Annica's sculpture, we meet them both in and out of that sculpture. That sculpture is not the ultimate boundary of either of them or of the possibilities of their relationship. So I think that's another important piece of the puzzle there.
And also important to be in it, to put it on, to fasten each other into it, to make another decision, to take it off, to leave one or the other inside of it, and then to put it in the water.
To bring it in the water,
To
yeah.
put it in the water, to wash it, to wash ourselves in it, to wash ourselves from it, of it. All of these things. I mean, for me, the water, I keep thinking about seeing Amistad. And I remember the scene in Amistad where they're running out of food and they chain some of the captured people together and they throw a cannonball, they throw them overboard and they're all, and I remember running out of the theater convinced that I was one of those people. I'm also a person who has almost drowned twice. So my relationship with the water is very particular, and I always feel when I get to the water, I must first ask permission to be well in it, to be safe in it. And I never go into water without asking that first. So to arrive at the Gulf and have the impulse to run in was so counter to all of my other water experience. And to feel that there was an opportunity here of birth, of baptism, of forgiveness, of renewal, of cleansing, and to feel the moments of drowning, because I did put myself in it. I did allow myself to go down, 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 as deep as I could go, and come up from it whole and well. And I could do that also because I knew you were there and that I would be safe. And that is another part of what this conversation is. It's about going to those depths, into the things that potentially separate us and break us, and making a container that is both large enough for us to step into, out of, and to hold whatever it is that we have to bring to it. And that's a thing that we talk about a lot. That the space that we have created in this work, I think, is an invitation to everyone to create a space that is safe for all of who we are, not just the parts that we like, not just the parts that we fix up and prop up for the world, but all of who we are. And that we, as Mark said, we have many things here that are not part of the piece, but where we landed is in a place that I feel to be essential to the conversation we were having, that we are having, and of who we are.
So the coming to the form of the installation, I mean, obviously we have two of you, and this is about a relationship between two people. But there's early on in that first period in Sarasota, the idea of two cameras taking in a situation or a subject, and that they, from almost the same angle, but never quite being able to find total alignment. They always will diverge from each other in some way. And that felt like a potent metaphor for what a relationship is, that you see each other, but you see something different. You see the same thing, but you're both seeing something differently from what the other is seeing. So that theme played out in, it sort of informed the ultimate shape of the installation in the film.
I also love this idea that when you can never take in the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So you're always forced to choose. Do I watch Shara? Do I watch
Yes.
Helga? Do I watch the ocean? Do I watch, where is my attention? And that our work is to make it really hard for you to choose. And to force all of us out of this place where it is only about what we see, what we think, our perspective, our knowing, our rightness. No, it is not. And for as many times as I have watched this work, I giggle every time because I can't ever really choose. And so what I do is I bargain, which is what we do. We bargain. Well, I'm going to watch this for this song, and then I'm going to watch this for this next song. Or, okay, the next time it comes around, I'll watch myself here, and then it's never, it isn't really a choice. We have to be like good jazz musicians and hear everything, and then understand where we are inside the music.
The placement and distribution of sound in Ocean Body is really important in what it does to the audience and how it includes them or calls their attention to a specific part, or image or screen. There are times when, it's almost literally you'll have Shara on one screen and Helga on another, and their sound is localized within the, coming from where you see them, so that you can really achieve this feeling like they are in dialogue with each other, and that you can look back and forth between them. It also can be used to represent a mind space. So there's a section where with Shara that I'm just thinking of right now, where you really feel like the sound is moving all the way around you in 360 degrees, sort of like the many voices that might inhabit your head, but you're in her head in that moment. So the way that can, the way the sound can submerge you in the ocean or leave you looking at the ocean from a distance. Those kind of ideas are a big part and partner to the visual aspect of the work. Because of course, this is a music work, and the music is so important in building this world. It's the center. It feels like it's the center.
Well, it really happened in part as a response to what was happening in the world. All of a sudden, the plans that we had to be together were not possible. And we knew that we had to keep making this statement. We had to keep discovering. We had to keep questioning. We had to keep knowing. We're trying to know.
And learning.
And learning.
Because having a relationship is very different from depicting a relationship, right? So when we came in, the two of you had a relationship that was evolved and, deep. But then as artists, when you're trying to tell the truth about that and look at it and examine and say, well, how is that put together? How do you take that apart and make somebody understand and care about it? That's a way that we don't really look at our relationships. So everything sort of changed too, and so that kind of awakeness we had to have to what was going on. That was something that sort of kept coming up, and each time that we got together, it felt like what was happening, in the relationship with us as makers and with the relationship of you two as makers to each other, trying to talk about the relation, because there's this meta level of this piece is a document of something that's really happening too, and it truly was. So that's not easy all the time. That's not easy.
One of the most difficult moments for me in the piece was in a workshop that we were doing in North Carolina. And it was one of the first times that Helga and I had been inside Annica Cupp's sculpture together. And so we were exploring and finding new things. And this was the first time that I'd been inside the sculpture with her. And so it was a lot of stimulation. It's
a lot of stimulation, and we were understanding the consequences, some of the consequence of being inside a thing that neither of us could move in without affecting the other. So there wasn't autonomy, there wasn't independence, there was only interdependence. And so there came a moment where, and you can see it sometimes in the film, where if we pull on the strings, it pulls you closer to me. And I wanted you closer to me, and I could feel you resisting. And so I kept pulling, and you kept resisting. And then we were running out of cord. And so I pulled you as hard as I could. And then what happened?
I freaked out. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. Just the act of my losing control over my body and the loss of control tripped a fuse in my system that I was not understanding at the time, and it scared me, and I fell on the floor. And that moment of our perceptions of what was happening being so different, and our intentions of what we were both doing feeling so vastly different. But what that did for me was I had to go into a deeper journey to find out, why did I drop on the floor? What was that about for me? And that investigation is one of the songs that you see in Ocean Body, called Constriction.
Constriction, violent and ageless. Constriction, I can't remember when I first felt like this. I don't know if it's mine, yet I feel it. I don't know where it came from, but it's here. Here comes another constriction wash over me like a wave, and I become silent, looking out blank. And I have to admit it, I am revolted. I'm revolted by this.
I think also what was hard for me about seeing you fall, was that I felt like you left me in a moment when I was really experiencing some joy, when I was having some power, when I could feel how strong I am, when I could feel and stand in the same way that we would in Superman pose, that I could really bring this part of myself finally out.
And yet you weren't meeting.
And
you
we weren't meeting.
Aligned. And that there's actually the section that we shot in North Carolina of you moving to, it came really out of that interaction where you're moving almost into an embrace, but then it never can resolve itself, and you're almost searching for a way to connect with each other's bodies. But it's almost as if within this tangle there isn't a way, that there isn't an easy way, that it's something to always be solving, that will always be being solved, that will never be solved.
All of these things, the idea that one could stand in a room and stand in one's power and lose one of the most important relationships in that moment to that power is a devastating thing. And particularly because we talk about bringing ourselves and bringing ourselves fully. And in that moment, that we each became something that neither of us is. You are not powerless.
And you are not powerless.
And I am powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And you are powerful.
Mm-hmm. What's so interesting about the piece is that we were always dealing with different things. So when we tried to have, when we're trying to like balance the material between us, the way in which what we were experiencing or what was hard was so different for both of us that there is not a comparative study in a way that I think I kept expecting. Oh, well, if Shara has this kind of thing, then Helga needs this kind of thing. If Helga has this song, I needed this kind of song. And it never really worked that way.
I feel like there's a real balance, but there isn't symmetry. Because there really is, there's an answer. It's a conversation. There's an answer. I mean, I feel like there are texts Helga wrote when we were working, that some of which are in the work, that were very immediate in confronting things that you were having difficulty with, that we were encountering in that you were encountering where we were, and I feel like, you know, there's more. There were a lot of texts and speeches that we made and that you each wrote that are not in this piece, but they are in this piece too. They are here. They're, you know, parts became redundant in a sense, or there was a moment that said what we needed to say and the rest could be left. And I think even maybe our, you know, finding that distance, like the whole Post-it map things we've gone through so many times, because in a way, you know, just being able to see what we've done to work on it, you know, that's finding ways to get that distance to then shape it, something that's so personal into something that is, you know, like how does this amassing of material get metabolized into structure?
So this is actually a very fun thing. As Mark was saying, we have a lot of material that didn't make it into the piece. And so what we would do is we would document all the little fragments we had, songs, stories, whatever they were, and then we would write everything on a Post-it note. And at the end, we would take our Post-it notes and literally stick them up on the wall. And we would make a show from our Post-it notes, and then we'd go watch that show.
Sometimes our ideas of what we thought, like we thought the show was going to be, and then we'd watch it and be like,
we thought, this is brilliant.
That's not the show.
This is genius. Yes, this is it. This is it.
It was great on paper.
It was amazing on the table, on the wall, on the Post-it. And then we would watch and we would just drop our heads.
Yeah. But we learned things. And then we'd be like, oh, and then we'd like sometimes something that I was, you know, used to dealing with these sort of, you know, these granules of content and shaping those. And that's how we all were working. And then sometimes something would end up inadvertently next to something that you didn't even think it wasn't really even a choice. And you'd be like, wow, that ignited, something happened. And then that could be a thread to follow that then, you know, gets you to a new idea of structure. That kept happening. I think that none of us could have predicted this. This was through iterations that we ended up with things moving from one thing to the next the way that they do, and materials informing each other the way that they do.
And I have to say, one of the moments that I feel very proud of, we had a 15-minute version of the piece. And those are our other friends at Here Performing Arts Center in New York. And I think that once we started thinking about making a longer version of the work, Shara and Mark thought that we could just kind of put other pieces inside the 15 minutes and that it would be. And my feeling was always that we had to start over. That it would be a different, we had to make a different piece. and that we didn't necessarily know what was going to be in that piece. And this came as, I think it came as a little bit of a surprise and an unwelcome surprise. It's like, no, we have to start over. So, well, what do you mean? Oh no, we have to start over. And we did. And we made something that we could not have known had we only been willing to accept that we had already made a thing. And it's this willingness, it's this way of the relationship being alive and expanding and morphing and changing with the situations, all the situations that we were encountering, whether it was COVID, whether it was mass incarceration, whether it was George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and riots. All of those things are part of this work and how it's put together.
And collaboration, I was talking to Allison about this today, but that, you know, and these are wonderful collaborators, but it's not worth doing if you don't get the magic out of it. And the magic is that you get to think things you never would have thought by yourself, and find things say things you never would have said, and discover things you never would have discovered. And that is what we, you know, in order to do that, you have to be faithful to the conversation and trust that the conversation will get you there. And that means you can't cut it off out of fear. And which is hard for all of us, because you get afraid and you think, you know, oh, we have this section and it's good, so let's keep that and we'll build, or, you know, whatever it is that you're thinking, you know, that you get attached to, you know, the practice of letting that go and saying, okay, let's talk. You say, no, I thought yes. What?
One of the things that Mark was very clear about, and this is when you really have a director who is also a collaborator, but who also is holding a larger vision of the work than maybe you as a creator and performer inside a work are not able to hold as well. So Mark is able to say, look, we've said this here, and we've actually said it 2 or 3 times. Where is the place, not that we've said it best, but where is the place that you've said it where it's most effective to what comes before it, what comes after it, what needs to come before it, what needs to come after it. And all of these considerations are held by your director. It's held by all of us, for sure. And sometimes we have ideas that are different than Mark's. And what is beautiful about this particular collaboration is that we are 3 extremely and extraordinarily passionate people. So when we feel that way about something, there is always the possibility to hear it and to see it and to watch it and to try it.
Mm-hmm. Try everything.
We try everything.
Try everything.
The one piece that I directed to the audience was about us wanting to you talked in the beginning, one of your ideas was that you wanted to give a theme song to people. You wanted to have a song that people walked out singing. And we also wanted people to have a process that they could take away, that we were leaving everywhere that the film goes, that there's a process that we are teaching, that we've learned ourselves and that we want to share. And one of those processes was settle down your fear, settle down your worry. And so that is hopefully something that audiences can take with them, is how do you do that? And we show little glimpses into the way in which we began to explore that question ourselves.
Well, if you look somewhere on me here, you'll see that I'm wearing a necklace that says yes. And one of my friends, Limor Tomer, who was actually on the committee the year that I won the Greenfield Prize in composition, she has been a great friend and a mentor, and she actually brought me to New York Public Radio. I had never been on the radio before. And when I arrived at New York Public Radio, she said, Helga, here's my advice. You're here now. Whatever anybody asks you to do, just say yes. And that piece of advice has actually brought me here. Because I said yes to my friend Lital, who asked if I wanted to go and hear some music with her. That yes led me to the Allen Room. And in the Allen Room was Shara Nova. That yes, helped me to write music in a way that I've never written it before, about things I've never written music about before. It's the yes to this friendship, the yes to this process, the yes to this collaboration, that is the thing that I hope people take away from this work, is to say yes. Say yes first. When it's hard, when it feels impossible, when your Post-it notes don't line up, find your yes. Find your yes. We are saying yes.
With our mouths, we say yes. With our actions, we say